Wednesday, September the 21st. Lake level is right about 9/11, same as it was last week. They kind of stopped the generation. We didn't get a whole lot of rain around here last weekend, not enough to affect the lake level. But the water temperature's actually come up a little bit. It's about 82 degrees. In the fishing, it hadn't changed much. We're still in a summertime deal until that water starts to cool down. Drop shot bite, you can probably catch as many numbers of fish on that as anything. The shallow bite that we've talked about as far as like the whopper plopper and buzzbait and spook. There's some pretty good weights been coming in on that. But there's not, the fishing, that really changes day to day on that. Seems like if you catch one in one area, you just not go back there the next day because you can't repeat the same area. Seems like you just got to cover a lot of water. It's a lot of different style banks. One time it'll be the main lake, next time it'll be halfway in the back of a pocket. But as that water we need that water to get cooler. And I think the reason the bite's so spotty like that is there's not a whole lot of them quality fish up shallow. I mean, there are some, but not a whole lot. And I think as the water temperature cools down, we'll have more of the quality fish move up there shallow where you get more numbers of bites on the whopper plopper and the spooks and the buzzbaits. And even, the dock bite is the same. It's real inconsistent, but you can catch some quality fish shallow on a dock, but not very many numbers. I fished a little tournament this past weekend, and I need to watch my fishing or listen to my own self on my fishing reports because I was determined I was going to catch them. We were up in the river, and I was determined I was going to catch them on a little square bill and flipping a worm and beaver. I had been catching a few earlier like that in the week. Well, when I got out to my first area, I knew it was different already because right off the bat I started catching short fish, and I hadn't been catching very many short fish, and they were Kentuckies. Most of the bites I had been getting were quality largemouth. But I was a little stubborn-headed, so I kept running the same pattern, different coves, different pockets, coming back to the same areas. And, hindsight's 20/20, but the tournament was really tough, where 9 or 10 pounds would have been pretty good if I'd have just went out and drop shot it for 10 pounds. But going into it, I was thinking, I can't catch the quality out there drop shotting, and I know there's quality in there shallow. So basically I was trying to force feed the fish the way I wanted to fish, and they weren't having no part of it. So instead of making a correction and go out and try some different things, I was too stubborn. But we all tend to do that a lot of times. We want to feed the fish. We want to try to catch fish the way we want to fish. Sometimes that doesn't work. But another little deal I've been throwing, if you'll notice when you're out there fishing, there's a lot of shad. Some of them are out in the middle of the lake. Some of them are back in the pockets. And throughout the day when I've been drop shotting, you'll actually see some fish coming up and schooling on them. Now this is something that we've always thrown in the fall. And yet, we haven't talked a whole lot about it or even thrown it very much because we've kind of replaced it with a swim bait. But it's kind of an old school deal. It's real similar to a Little George. And I've got a couple different ones here. This one here is called a rinky dink. And I'll throw from a 1/2 ounce to a 3/4 ounce. And basically the line goes through the lure, and then you tie onto a split ring with a treble hook. The reason for this is these little baits are so heavy, if the hook is attached to the bait when the fish comes up and jumps, they got a lot better chance of throwing the bait coming unhooked. With this setup here, the bait will actually slide up the line, and when the fish jumps and shakes his head, he won't have the weight of the lure. So that's the reasoning for the line going through the bait. Where a Little George, it's got a little eye down here, and the hook is permanent right on the bait. And this other one here is called a tail kicker, and it's basically the same as the little rinky dink. Same setup. And the hook you tie directly onto it. Now this one doesn't come with a split ring. I normally like to put a little split ring on the hook to tie the line to. Now the only drawback, and sometimes I will put a bigger hook on here. This comes with a number 6 short shank. If you put a bigger hook on there, a lot of times what happens is that treble hook will get hooked through the line as you're fishing it. But the way I fish this bait, depending on where the fish are. But if they're out there schooling, I'll just cast it out, count it down, and you'll fish it kind of the same way you do an underspin. You count it down 5, 6, 7, 8 feet. But the good thing about them, where they're anywhere from ½ ounce to 1 ounce, if the fish are closer to the bottom, you cast it out there, let it go to the bottom, and jerk it up off the bottom. Just kind of yo-yo it, reel the slack, and let it go up and down where it look like this, off of the bottom. Most of the time the bites will come as the bait's falling. But a lot of the bait that's out there right now, it's real little bait, and you'll see big schools of bait. If you see the schools of bait in 15 to 20 foot, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll drop this below the bait and just slow roll it. So it's another little trick to try, especially when the fish, like right now, they're so scattered out because the shad are scattered out. You can cover a lot of water with this. And if I'm running that shad pattern, the other thing I usually will do with it, I will have a big spinnerbait, like a 3/4 ounce. I'll mix up, big 2 tandem willow blades, 3/4 to 1 ounce, and I'll slow roll the spinnerbait through the shad and under it. But a lot of times, the little bait will produce bigger and more fish. So it's something to try. Until next week, good luck, good fishing.